Many of us woke up to Trump's attacks in Venezuela this morning, and we'd love to know what's happening in Venezuela. Christopher, what are your thoughts?
Many thoughts, as usual. It's early days yet. I think anyone who thinks it's all over by the shooting is probably mistaken, because, as we've seen in the past, regime change engineered by the US has generally resulted in way more complications than whoever has come up with the idea has um, accounted for. And so in this case, almost seems too easy. And that is a fatal trap. If we look just from the resource point of view, for mining sector investors, there was Crystal X once upon a time, and there has been nickel mined there. Crystal X was a gold story that was on the TSX and ran into trouble after Venezuela essentially seized the asset, a gold mine, and passed it to Russian interests, I think. But this was a long while ago, 15 years ago. And since then, mining investors have, given Venezuela wide berth. Oil and gas, of course, has gone on. And ironically, oil and gas has gone on in Venezuela with US companies participating, particularly Chevron. Venezuela has not been as hostile territory to US interests as some people may have made out. The other question is, of course, PDVSA is a monolithic state enterprise like Pemex is in Mexico and other countries. Can assets be taken away from PDVSA by US fiat and given to Exxon or other US oil companies? We shall see. But any politician that steps into the quicksand ends up sinking. And so they're my first thoughts, but then a whole lot of other thoughts sort of arise from that.
I have a number of questions for you, Christopher. Of course, Trump is claiming that his reasons for going into Venezuela are drugs. Would you say that's correct, or the rumors of oil and gas seem to be more substantial for many of us in the investment
The drug
community?
argument is definitely feeble. If we compares the amount of drugs coming to the US from Mexico or Colombia, Venezuela just doesn't even register on the Richter scale. And that's where, potentially the first big flaw comes, that he has said that he's got the Southern District of Manhattan managing the legal side of this whole thing. And as we know, right from the start of the Trump regime, he has got it, or his team has got it consistently wrong in interpreting what the law is and whether the law is actually on his side. And it's been found not to be on his side in many cases. Making the argument that the leader of a South American country controls some machine guns is so feeble that he risks actually being laughed out of court. So he's going to have to come up with better arguments for trying Maduro and his wife. But what the wife has to do with it is it's a mystery. So you are right. It really comes. It's got all about oil and gas and absolutely nothing to do with drugs, because there's been no concrete evidence that anything about this has to do with drugs.
Critical minerals. Of course, I reached out to the Critical Minerals Institute board this afternoon. And I said, who understands critical minerals in Venezuela? And everybody said Christopher Ecclestone. So can you tell us a little bit more about what kind of criticals that we're looking at? My feeble research is nickel and copper.
Yeah, nickel was definitely a thing once upon a time. I think even BHP were involved with nickel in Venezuela a long while ago. The thing is that really, most of these critical metals have come to public attention since 2010. Venezuela has not even been on the table during that period. So nobody has been fossicking around in the Venezuelan jungle looking for rare earths or tin or tungsten or any of the things that are sexy at the moment. And we know that many of these metals exist in Brazil. As the CMI conference last May pointed out, Brazil is an absolute treasure house. And many of the areas where these minerals exist in Brazil border upon, neighboring countries, one of which is Venezuela. But no one has done any work since 2010, so who knows? And Venezuela very much over the past century has been making so much out of oil and gas that it never really bothered much with mining. We had in recent times a bit of a flurry because you may recall that Venezuela threatened 2 or 3 months back to make incursions into Guyana, claiming that part of Guyana belonged to it. And of course, Guyana is one of the hot spots of gold these days. So takes the pressure off Guyana, but it does raise again the issue about whether the Guyana Shield, which Venezuela controls part of, is viewed as an enormously prospective gold province and is proven to be so in Guyana. So I think it's cherchez the gold and cherchez the oil and gas rather than cherchez the drugs.
So what's the best case scenario that Trump can anticipate over his latest aggressive maneuver?
Everyone folding their cards and letting him get what he wants. And Trump seldom gets what he wants, as we've seen over the last year. And the issue here is they talk about boots on the ground. There are no US boots on the ground. There's not one US military standing in Venezuela at this very moment, except maybe a sentinel outside the US embassy. And so they have no control of what's actually going on within the country just by grabbing the president of the country. And that is a big mistake, thinking that you can take out one person and you take out a whole country. Time will tell, and the time that will tell is really over the next week or two, because there is a whole structure. Maduro was not, a Stalin-like figure that was all-encompassing and all-powerful. He was just part of a whole structure that's been built up over the last 25 years there. There are lots of mini Maduros out there, and a vice president, moreover, who can potentially step into the role. So don't think you've won the war by just taking out one guy.
Your experience in Venezuela, how do you think the Venezuelan people will respond to this?
Well, most of the Venezuelan middle class and upper class have departed. Enormous numbers of them have gone to Colombia, Argentina, Europe, the US. These people are not there. The ones who've stayed there, either the ones who were in agreement with the Maduro policies and the Bolivarian revolution, or people who were so poor that they could not leave and so unskilled that they could not leave. So, essentially you've got a group now of, all the people with get up and go have got up and gone over the last 25 years. Either they've got to come back and create a new sort of like re-emigre community to retake their economic positions, or they're going to say, hey, we're comfortable where we are now. Why do we want to go back to the mess and 20 years or 30 years of rebuilding Venezuela? Life's too short.
Well, on that note, we'll be checking back in with you, Christopher, in the next couple of weeks as we see how these events unfold. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.